The Song by the Sea by Peter Davis, Macquarie Park, 2113. Narrated by David Tredinnick. Now, let me tell you about Anne. Lovely woman, Anne. Kind eyes, gentle hands. A mind that once worked like clockwork, always ticking, never missing a beat. But you see, time has a funny way with us all, and lately, her thoughts have started drifting away, slipping like sand through fingers. But there's one thing, one memory that seems to stay with her even now. It's the music she heard down by the sea. Now, you or I, we might call it a quiet day by the shore, but to Anne, oh no, this was something special, something sacred. There's a kind of music that lives there, she'd say, her eyes lighting up with the memory. You could see she was back there again for just a moment, sitting by the edge of the waves, her toes in the sand. It's not a tune, not exactly, she'd explain, but you can feel it, right here. And she'd tap her heart. Well, her husband would just sit there beside her, nodding quietly. He'd heard her tell this story before, many times. But today it was different. Today there was a glint in her eye, a light that hadn't been there in a while. He could almost hear the music himself just watching her. You know, she went on about how the waves would whisper and the wind would hum, and all of it together. Why, it was like the whole sea was singing. And for a moment, just a tiny moment, she was back there, that young woman on the beach, listening to a song that only she could hear. But then, as quickly as it came, the memory slipped away. She blinked, looked around, and there it was. That look, that gentle confusion. The music, like everything else, had started to fade. Her husband gave her hand a squeeze, and he didn't say a word because what was there to say? He knew, and she knew, that some things you can't hold on to forever. You wouldn't have noticed, not unless you were watching closely. 1 second, Anne's eyes were clear, like the sea on a windless day. The next, they were quieter. Not blank, no, not that. Just further away, like someone standing behind a thin curtain. But before it left her completely, she gave him a look. Just a small one, nothing grand. But it was full of something that couldn't be spoken, only known. It said, "You've got it now. That bit of me. It's yours." She looked away, out toward the trees, or the sky, or maybe just into the space where thoughts used to sit. And her expression, well, it softened. There was no panic, no confusion, just peace. The kind that comes when you've handed something over and you know it's safe. Now listen, he wasn't a poet, her husband. Never wrote much more than birthday cards and the odd shopping list. But later that evening, after the quiet routines of brushing teeth and pulling back sheets and turning off hallway lights, he sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea growing cold beside him. The house was still. Anne was already asleep upstairs, curled softly into herself, her breath even and quiet. And he found one of her old notebooks, the kind with little coffee rings on the cover and torn-out pages at the back. He opened it to a blank page, and slowly he began to write. Not just the words she'd said, though he wrote those down too. No, he wrote what the moment had meant, what it had felt like. He wrote about the way she'd looked at him, direct and clear-eyed, like herself, the real Anne, stepping into the room for a moment and placing something in his hands. He wrote about the sea, how she had loved it, how he now imagined that the music she spoke of wasn't just a metaphor or a memory, but something the sea really held, something ancient, something true. A kind of remembering that belonged to the earth itself. He closed the notebook when he was done and rested his hand on it for a long time. Not like you close a book and move on. More like when you put a hand on someone's shoulder just to say, "I'm here." Then he placed it on the bedside table, right next to the photo of her, younger then, standing barefoot by the sea, wind in her hair, her mouth open in mid-laughter. She looked alive in that photo. Free. As if she'd just heard something marvellous. Which, he thought, she probably had. He turned off the lamp and sat for a moment in the dark, listening to the quiet house. There was no music. Not really. Just the usual creak, the hum of the fridge. But still, he could feel something, like the tail end of a song you almost remember. Something low and deep, not made for words. He smiled. Anne might forget again. Likely would. The beach, the sentence, even the memory of saying it. But he wouldn't. He kept that memory for her, tucked away safe, right in his own heart. And so, whenever he walked by the sea after that, he'd close his eyes and listen, just in case he could catch a note or two of that song she loved so dearly. He would write it. He would keep it. And one day, when their daughter came to visit, or when their grandson asked why Gran liked to hum to herself when it rained, he would tell them about the music. Not a song, not a melody, but a memory passed hand to hand. A story about the sea and the woman who once heard it sing. The end.